Welcome to Artistic Adventures. We're going to be doing something different today. We're going to be repainting a Rapunzel doll. I don't know if you've seen these or not, but I thought this would be something kind of fun to do, and we'll make her a dress and some other things too. So this is the doll I bought. It's the Animator series. There's more than one type of Rapunzel doll. She's 16 inches tall. Here she is in her box when I first got her, and that's a close-up look at her face. And then I'm going to give you an even closer look at her out of the box. And now you can sort of see where we're headed after we do the face up. We'll take a look at her again at the end. Here we go. Well, we got her out. I didn't want to show you me struggling to get her out of the box. I don't know what it is about doll manufacturers. Boy, they really do know how to put a doll in a box so that it doesn't move a centimeter or a fraction of an inch. Anyway, she's out, and whoa, Nellie. This is her face. I have a picture of her face too that I can use to compare. But anyway, I've seen some people do some customizations on these dolls. There's a couple of different, well, maybe more than a couple different Rapunzels. There's one that's this size where she's smiling, and I didn't want that because I didn't want the smile. I want the neutral lips so we could do something with the look. There is another Animator. These are called the Animator series, and there's another one that has this face in, I think she's in a nightgown, and she's more expensive. Like, I got this doll on Amazon for, I guess, $27. I'll put a link below if you're interested. But there is a same face in a nightgown, and it's like $45. So this was Prime, so I didn't have to pay shipping. There was one on eBay for $24, but you had to pay $19 shipping, and I wasn't going to do that. So that would have made it $40-some. Anyway, I'm interested to do this. It's something different, and you know I like different. I like adventure. So the first thing we're going to do, since she's soft face, is take her face off. And we're just going to use acetone just like we would, you know, a Monster High or whatever. I'm going to see if I can position the camera just a little bit better here. And then tighten it down so it doesn't move all over the place. So I'm just going to use some cosmetic cotton pads because she has a lot of paint on her. Q-tip would take forever. And we're just going to get rid of everything on her face. She does have some nice eye indentions, so that's going to be good to work with. Sometimes when it's kind of just a flat face, it's really kind of hard to draw the eyes the same size on both sides because you have nothing really to go by. You have to just keep drawing and looking at it and hope that you get it the right size. I've been working on a couple of other projects while I've been out of work. It's funny, I don't really have the pain in my knee anymore, but I do have difficulty sitting for a very long time. It just is uncomfortable, mostly in my thigh, which I guess is just the muscles getting used to having been traumatized. And then of course I did physical therapy, but I'm not walking with the walker anymore. I went through the cane, and then I really only use the cane if I go out now. So I think I'm doing pretty well. This is the 4th week. Tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, will be the 4th week since I had the surgery. And I'll go back on Thursday for the pre-op meeting for my next knee. And then that will be on October the 11th. So we'll go through this all again. I was telling my husband this morning, it's like when women have a baby, you know, you have to have that time in between where you forget the pain and everything, where you're ready. And since the knee that was operated on has improved and I don't have much pain in it, now I'm feeling so much the pain in the left knee that hasn't been operated on yet. So, and I think it's been enough time where I've forgotten. So I'm like, yes, I'm ready to have knee surgery again. Even though it's only been 4 weeks, I'm ready. I'm ready to get over with all this pain, constant pain. Even though the right knee's done now, I still have the pain in the left knee, so I still can't walk great or for long distances or stand for long times because of the pain in the left knee. So be happy to get all that over with, and hopefully, got green all over her. See if I get that off. Hopefully I can, then I'll build up my stamina. I've lost a lot of stamina from, not being able to walk much and stand much. You really, especially when you get older, you lose that so quickly. That's why people don't understand when like really older people, like, 80s and 90s, when they get pneumonia and they go in the hospital, they lay still for a few days. Oh, they lose so much strength and mobility. It's really hard for them to get it back. I went through that with my dad too. Just going in for like UTIs and having to lay and get treatment for IV treatment and stuff like that. And he had Parkinson's, so that was really also affecting his mobility. Okay, I think we got her face pretty clean. So I'm going to wash it, and then we'll put some Liquitex matte medium on it and let that dry, and then we'll start our face up. Alright, so here she is after we put down the Liquitex matte medium and let that dry overnight just to make sure everything was nice and dry so we don't pull that up as we're using our watercolor pencils. So I'm just going to pull out some of the colors I think I'm going to use, and of course I'll always end up having to go back for more, but here's a few I'm going to pull out of the mini that I have, and then we'll get started. The first thing I'm going to do is just put white down over her eyes. I do have this pencil sharpener in my glasses, so I think I'm ready. Yeah, so it's kind of nice working on a little bit bigger doll for me. Anyway, I really find it harder and harder to work on smaller things. I guess just, with the troubles that I have sometimes with my hands with arthritis and that sort of thing. So it's going to be kind of fun to work on a little bit bigger doll where I can do a little bit more, I think, with detail and make them look a little bit more realistic. I think that's going to be fun. But I am going to start down by putting down a really good thick layer of white using a watercolor pencil all over the area that was the whole sclera of the eye. Now I'm going to kind of make use of that area to make the eye a little bit smaller. You can see there's a ridge right over top of this, really indented a lot, and we're going to make use of that. But first thing I'm going to do is take that area right below the ridge, and I'm going to put a line using my black pencil because I want to give her a little bit more of an eyelid. Now this larger hole on this pencil sharpener I'm using for the, these are the Albrecht Dürer pencils from that I had, and they're bigger than the normal pencil sharpener. Now I'm not going to tell you to go get this pencil sharpener because it really doesn't work all that great, but it's better than trying to carve it with a knife, which I think is what you're really supposed to do, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. So I'm using that pencil sharpener. But it does work pretty good for the smaller pencil because my electric one stopped working. So anyway, having to use the black pencil out of that set because I lost the black pencil out of the smaller set. So I'm going to start at kind of at the corner near the nose, and then I'm going to mark off a little bit lower, and then I'm sort of gradually getting it a little bit wider. And this is going to end up being part of her lid. And then I'm just doing a little flick out right there where the indentation of the eye meets. I'm doing a little flick out, so like a wing. So I'm winging it out. Doing the same thing over here on the other side. And I'm going to color the top part over that black line with a skin colored pencil to make it look more like a lid than the white part of the eye, the sclera. And just want to say too that when you make mistakes on a doll like this at this size, I think it was a whole lot easier for me to correct the mistakes than it is on a smaller doll. Like if you get a line that's too thick, or you end up, your pencil goes crazy and goes sliding off the face in a direction you didn't want it to go. Oh, yeah, it's just a little bit easier, I thought. And I think that the plastic of this doll, it's not hard, it's soft, so you can use the acetone on it to get the colors off, but it is a little bit harder than like a Monster High doll. It's not that soft. And I've always found like that 17-inch Monster High dolls, I think that putting color on them was better than putting color on the 11-inch Monster High dolls. And I think it's the same thing. It's just a little bit difference in the plastic and how they accept the color. So I'm just using a flash color pencil here to put a little bit lighter color down over the top of the line. I did put some black right on top of that ridge to sort of demarcate that as a sort of a crinkle of the lid. So there's so many steps to the eyes on this doll. And one of the things I'm doing is I wanted to try to make her a little bit doe-eyed, which means it's slightly cross-eyed, but not enough that it looks, like you're making a face at somebody. More like it's a cute kind of myopic look. And I think I did that to some degree, but not as much as I wanted to, and you'll see after I finish. But to do that, you want the iris to be closer on the side near the nose. And you see how there is so much space over on the side near the ear and less near the face. So what we're doing is trying to make her just a little bit cross-eyed, and that's called a sort of doe-eyed look. And it's kind of a cute look. And we're going to do a fairly large pupil because when we start working on the color, we're going to bring that color in. So don't be afraid that this is too large. You'd also notice that I'm hooding a bit of the iris with the upper lid, letting the bottom of the iris sit sort of right on the bottom lid. And that gives her pretty much sort of straight ahead look. I don't want to draw, if you draw the iris just as a round circle in the middle and don't put part of it up under the lid, she would look like she just saw a ghost. It'd be like a surprise look, like, ah! So, well, she kind of looks like that now, but it would look much worse if you did it that way. I'm also putting some brown down on the under part of that ridge at the bottom. And one of the problems I had was when you got a ridge like that and you're putting your mark down with your pencil, you're kind of pressing hard, and you get to a point where the ridge is not as high, then your pencil kind of goes skidding off across of her face. That happened so many times. But this is sort of a reddish brown, and I wanted that to kind of look like the reddish area that is at the bottom of the eyelid, or at the bottom of the eye, where it meets the eyelid. And then I'm putting that dark brown into that crease up above the ridge. Doing a lot of erasing. I did a whole lot of erasing with this doll. And I did put some white around the ridge on the bottom, right there, on the bottom eye, of the bottom of the lid. Because I want that to kind of stand out just a little bit. And I'm going to shade under that here in a minute. And like I said, I'm using that peachy color, skin tone, right over that black line that I put on the white, so that it looks like part of the lid. Now, for the eyes, I started out using pencil and wasn't happy with the color, but the theory is I'm going to use a lighter blue color coming down the side near the bottom. I'm going to have white pretty much right at the bottom, and then I'll have a darker blue at the top sides of the eye. So I'm using this lighter blue on the bottom sides, and then this darker blue up, and I'm just drawing back and forth from the side of the iris to the pupil to give those lines, because that's how I want the eye to look more like a realistic eye. If you look in the mirror, you'll see you have all those lines kind of going in from the outside to the pupil. So you can see the colors really didn't show up all that great. So I'm going to end up using some acrylic paint at the end, which I was going to use some for white, but I think I'll just go ahead and do that for the blue. It'll make the color a whole lot more vibrant. So some of the colors I'm finding go down really well, and some I don't find go down that well. The blues didn't. The black does pretty good. The browns do pretty good. The reds, pinks. Not sure why the blues didn't show up that well. Just a little difference in the way the plastic accepts it. If you weren't trying to get it too dark or vibrant, it probably would be okay. You could put down some more coats of the matte medium too, but I'm trying not to put too many coats of that down. So here's where we are on the eyes right now. I have darkened the pupil some with black, but I am going to put some acrylic paint down on that. Now I'm going to start using some pastels, some chalk pastels to shade. Really want to bring her eyebrows down a little bit from where they are on the original doll. And I'm going to use this sort of reddish brown color to shade underneath where I'm going to put the watercolor pencil marks. And also to kind of shade the lid above where those creases are. So where I'm putting that brown chalk pastel, I'm going to put more brown pencil to make sort of hair-like marks on top of that for the eyebrows. And so for her, I'm making the eyebrows near the nose a little bit higher and then bringing them down just a tad. They're almost really straight across, honestly. Put a little bit of shading down underneath the eyelid on the bottom. And I did also shade around the nose. I am now putting down those hair-like strokes in the eyebrows right on top of that chalk that I put down, the pastel. And I'm going to put some white acrylic paint on top of that a little bit later. I also used a darker color brown to give it some variation in color and make it look a little bit more dynamic. I'm always interested when I do this, like I get to a certain point, like almost like this part where it's almost starting to look kind of weird, but then I know what I'm doing, and I know, how the face looks and everything. And I know it's going to be okay, but there's parts of time where it's like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work. So, but stay with me. It is going to end up okay. Well, you probably know that because you already saw the thumbnail. So anyway, now I'm just outlining the shape of the lips that I want, and I'm going to put a little bit of black in the center to kind of make it look like her lips are parted just a little bit right in the center. Instead of the way it is now, they look completely closed. It'll give her a little bit of a breathless look. Well, that's my goal anyway, so I'm going to come up just a little bit on that top lip that sort of pooches out in the middle, and then just make a little bit of a sort of a, I guess, a curve right there on the bottom lid. Not really pooched out very much, but just a little bit. So I just want it to look like her mouth is slightly open in the center. And I did this, I went over this probably 100 times. Didn't do it all on camera, but just really trying to get the exact look that I wanted. I did extend the corners of the mouth out just a little bit with the black pencil and put a little round area, and then I put some pastels around that also to kind of make that area where the corners of the mouth are sort of sink in just a little bit. And I did start it out using the pastel pencils on the lips, and I think it worked pretty well. Although in the end I didn't like the way it looked, so I decided to go ahead and use some acrylic paint. But you can see it's sort of taken the color pretty well. I couldn't get the combination of shadows and colors that I wanted with the pencils, so I ended up using acrylic paint. I did put some of the that reddish brown around the nose and the philtrum, that sort of deviation down from the nose to the top of the lips, the cupid's bow. And also put some dark brown in the nostrils so they're shaded. So you can see where we are there at this point. I am going to put lashes on her, and I think that's going to really change her appearance too. So lots of things coming. I just have to make this happen one step at a time. All right, so I'm using this sort of fluffy brush. It's actually a makeup brush. I like this for putting pastel chalk down like on cheeks or larger areas because it's very smooth. Does a good job. I put just a little bit across the nose, the bridge of the nose, not on the tip of the nose, but on the bridge, just like she just got a flash of some sun. She was out picking daisies or something, and, and got a little pink cheeks and a little bit across the bridge of the nose and just a little bit up around the hairline, just to give it some dimension. So she's got her red cheeks and everything. We're now going to start working with some acrylic paints. These are the colors I put out initially. I just used aluminum foil as my palette. And also, for this type of project, I'm going to use some really watered down white. So I used to use a medicine cup and put some of the acrylic out of a tube in there, and then I'm going to dip it into my water glass that I keep on the side. So I've got some water in there, about equal parts. And then I always end up just using the end of a paintbrush, which it works. I wipe it off and mixing that up because I want it to be a pretty thin wash. I don't want it to be translucent. I want it to be opaque. So in other words, I don't want you to be able to see through it. I don't want it that thin. But this is what I'm going to use in some of the areas that I want to do some really fine lines, especially on the eyes. So that's the consistency there. So I'm going to set that to the side. And I also used it when I did the eyelashes on the bottom. I'm using this really tiny brush. This is a 000 brush if you're interested. To do these lines on the iris, I go from the outside to the pupil, all the way around. I don't want the lines to go outside the outer line of the iris. And for the colors, I'm not really putting them across the pupil. But when I do the white part, you'll see that I do actually extend those just very slightly over the pupil. So I'm starting out with darker blue, putting those lines in. I'm going to do that on both sides. Then I'm going to take some white and add to the blue and do a lighter color blue down closer to the side. And this is what gives the eyes that look of reality. They're a little bit hooded by the lid, so the upper part is darker than the lower part that is more reflective of the light. So here I'm just mixing up the lighter color blue to get the color that I want, and do a few lines of that into the darker blue just to mix it properly. And then I'll come down and leave a section at the very bottom that's just totally white. Now I'm using black paint over the pupil to get that nice and dark. I want that completely black. So now I'm going to go over all of the areas, the dark blue, the light blue, and the white, with very thin white strips. And I'm going to extend that into the pupil just a little bit. But here's what it looks like before that. You can see how I've delineated the different dark and light colors in the eyes. So that's the dark blue, then there's the light blue on both sides, and then in the middle is the white. Same on both sides. You can already see this starting to come to life a little bit more. And now we're going to start putting in those white strips. And you'll see I'm just going to extend it very slightly over the pupil. And that's just to give it a little bit more realistic look. Now to do this, I don't just stick my brush into the white and use it immediately. I sort of drag it up the side of the cup, and that gets enough off of the brush so that you don't get a big lump of white on your very first stroke. You know how that is. It's sort of helps to maybe take off that initial glop. So I just sort of stick it down the side and then drag it up the side, and it gets some of the excess paint off. So put this pin in and then drag it up the side, and then I'm going to start from the outside and go in, and I'm going to do the white marks over the entire surface, from the dark blue, the light blue, and over the white as well. So if you make a mistake, you can always paint over it. That's the great thing about paint. If you do it with the watercolor pencils, you can erase it. But I just want to show you this technique because you can use this on any other doll with their eyes big enough that you can do this. And it just gives it a much more realistic look. I've got some other dolls I've been working on, and I've been using this technique on those too. And when I used to do more with doing portraits of people, I used to do a lot of portraits, and I used chalk pastels. And I really liked, this similar sort of technique to do the eyes, and it was very realistic looking. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around. And now I'm putting black acrylic paint on top of that black watercolor pencil mark that I put just under that ridge that's forming the false eyelid, I guess is the way to say it, the bottom of the false eyelid, and then the flick out on the side for the wing. I want that to be really dark. I'm going to put a lash on top of that, but I do want it to look really dark underneath. I'm getting my wing a little bit darker as well. And that's how that looks. And then I'm going to go over and do the same thing on the other side. Speed that up a little bit. That side I always have trouble with because I have to turn it upside down because of the way your hand curves when you draw lines. So there's where we are now. You can start to see it looking. This is the point where it starts really coming to life, I think. And now I'm going to put some white streaks into the eyebrows. It also gives them a little bit more realistic look, a little bit more dynamic. You could do the same thing on the lips. You see how that looks? And I did put some darker stripes of watercolor pencil in there too. And that's where I dumped out the paint on the doll's hair. Oh, such a great adventure I had. Cleaned that up off camera. But I do have a little bit left, thank goodness. Oh, it's always something. There's a good picture of me dragging the white up the side. I also am using this to make the sclera around the iris a little bit whiter because at this point it was just the watercolor pencil, and as you work on it after a while and you've erased things or whatever, it can get a little bit dirty looking. So I wanted that white to really pop. So I went around and did that. And if you go outside the lines like I do all the time, you can always go around with the watercolor pencil like the brown or whatever it was close to the area that you were working on. That's what I'm doing right there. Also, I think I kind of went inside the iris a little bit. I'm trying to remember if I show this, but I also put a little bit of a gray area on the very outer edges of the eye because I wanted it to look round, that eyeball to really look round. And if you do that, if you put a little bit of gray on the outer edges, it does help to give it a rounded look. I think that's where I was trying to come up with the right color gray. Like when you mix it on the thing, it looks really, really dark, and then you put it on it and it looks white. So, I don't know, I kept having to add black. I think I finally got it pretty well. I liked, the way it looked and everything. And it did give it a little bit more of a rounded look. Yeah, that's what I'm doing there, is putting that gray down on the very outer edge. If you get too much, you can always go back over it with the white. And I think I ended up using the gray watercolor pencil to do this shading on the part that's near the eye, since it's a very little bit of white there, and I didn't want to screw it up by trying to use paint. And that works really well too. So just touching up a few areas. Going back over some lines that I covered up with paint. And then we want to put the sparkles in the eye. And that's what really makes it come to life. And I even put a couple of dots in the blue of the iris, which I thought looked pretty. And I think we're pretty much getting close to the end here. So we're going to do some other things with this doll though, so we'll have lots more coming up. Okay, so here's where we are at this point. And I think you can tell now we've really brought those eyes to life. But we do need to put on some eyelashes, and that's my favorite part. So I did take her out, and I put a couple, 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear spray on her outside using my respirator. So she has Mr. Super Clear on right now. So I'm going to put these lashes on top, and then I'm going to also put some clear acrylic paint on the eyes themselves and on the lips. So I'm kind of going to do this all in one time because I have to let things dry. And I'm going to use Mod Podge, just some regular white glue, to glue the eyelashes down. I love my E6000, but they just don't seem to work as well for the eyelashes. This glue, although it's white, it dries clear, and I think it turns out to look the most natural. So I'm putting a little bit just in the corner where I'm going to start the lash near the nose. I let that dry, and then I'll do the rest of it because her upper lid is really curved, and the lashes are straight, so it would be hard for me to hold it in that curved position. So it's easier for me to just start with one corner, get that really, really dry so that it's anchored down, and then I can curve it around easier and glue down the other parts of the lash. I think I've showed you this in several other videos with smaller dolls, but it was really, really important to do it this way on this doll because of the shape of her eyes. They're so round. So basically I've just got that corner glued down, and you can see the lash is just kind of going straight up. So I'll just let that dry while I'm doing other things. And then we'll come back and curve it around and put glue down on the other parts. Meanwhile, I can work on I'm going to go ahead and put the one on the other side. That's right. I'll let that be drying while I come back and work with some of that clear acrylic paint. You can also put a little dab of the glue on the bottom of the lash and let that dry just a few seconds, and that helps it stick. Like, lets it get a little bit tacky. So I'm using this clear acrylic, and I'm going to put that on the lips and the eyes. And I put about 2 coats, I think, of this. You don't want to put a very thick coat on at one time because it can run, and then you'll have a mess all over your beautiful face that you just completed. I've done that too. Yep. So just putting it all over the eyeball portion to make that glisten and glow like a real eye does, because it's wet, and also the lips for them to be lit. All right, so I went ahead and got the lashes down off camera. This is how she looked. This is our Rapunzel before, and this is our Rapunzel after. So you can see there's just a whole lot more dimension and color to the face. The eyes really pop. you know, she's got more of a straight ahead direction on her gaze than she did before. And I think the lips look a little bit different. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. We're going to work on some other things for this doll. If you haven't already, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thanks and bye.